So welcome to our second look-in of week 2. We thought yesterday about the Hebrew people and how they locked in whenever they were told by God that the angel of death would pass through, and so their isolation brought salvation. We're going to jump forward now to the book of Ruth, an ancestress of the Lord Jesus. And Ruth chapter 1 reads, "In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land." We've heard that before. "And a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab," somewhere where they were told not to go. "He and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, the name of his wife Naomi. The names of his 2 sons were Machlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moab wives. The name of the one was Orpah, the name of the other Ruth. And they lived there about 10 years. And both Machlon and Chilion died, so that the women were left with 2 sons and no husband." Here we are with a sad tale in the Old Testament. We have 3 ladies. We have Naomi, we have Ruth, and we have Orpah. And they find themselves in the country of Moab. Now, this is where God's people were told not to go. And later on in the story of Ruth, we read of how the 3 ladies set off to come back to Bethlehem, because they're told that in Bethlehem, the house of bread, once again, there is bread. They're told to go to the house of bread for food. And so they begin to return back to the land that they came from. But Ruth, and this is where we find our isolated individual, because on their way back, Naomi is heading back towards her people, back to the people of God, and she's been accompanied by her daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, and she stops on the road and she tells both of them, "Go back to Moab. I can offer you nothing. You will be isolated, basically. You will have nothing. You will have no one. I have no sons to give you in marriage. You'll be destitute. I am a widow. I have nothing to offer you. Go back home. Go back to your fathers. Go back again to your people, to your family. You have much more that you can have there." And Orpah says, "Yes, okay." And she returns. And actually, we never read of Orpah again. Orpah returned to the land of Moab, to the ways of Moab, and probably will spend a lost eternity because of her decision. Ruth, on the other hand, says to Naomi, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." As we read the story of Ruth, it's a beautiful love story of how Ruth meets Boaz, and how Boaz and Ruth, he is her kinsman redeemer. He redeems her, he provides for her, and it's a beautiful story. It's where girl meets boy, and in a sense they live happily ever after. Boaz and Ruth, they become the ancestress and ancestor of King David, who in turn is the ancestor of the Lord Jesus. But if Ruth wasn't prepared to isolate herself, that wouldn't have ever happened. We read of 3 ladies in this story. Naomi, her isolation brings her home. I wonder, do you need to be brought home? Brought back into the family of God again? Maybe you've been away. You've wandered away. You've been like the prodigal, far away. You need to be brought back again. This is a time for you to realize that the church, the Lord, stands with open arms to welcome back the prodigal, those who have wandered away. Maybe you need to be like Ruth and forsake all. Forsake what you're clinging on to in order to come to God. Maybe you realize that you've been clinging on to job and prosperity. You've been clinging on to pleasures and the enticing things of the world. Maybe you realize you've got to forsake. Go into a time of isolation. This time of isolation has reminded you that those things are nothing. You've been isolated at this time. Think about how you must forsake to trust. Don't be like Orpah. Don't realize that you'll be isolated. And during this time of isolation, use it as a time to think about all those things that you're missing out on. And when all of this is over, you'll return back from whence you came, to embrace the things of the world again in a way where you forget all about what you've learnt during this time of isolation, about trusting in God. Be like Ruth. Forsake all. During this time of isolation, use it as a time to trust, a time to realize that God is waiting with outstretched arms to receive you.